spoke about the idea that when you put your tefillin on, you put your tefillin shel yad. First you put the hand tefillin on, and then you put the head tefillin on. But Moshe pointed out that it was an interesting thing. When you put the hand tefillin on, you just put them on and you don't finish up wrapping them around at the bottom of your hand to make the shin and the daled and the yud, right? You just get it down to the bottom over here. Most people sort of just wind everything around into the middle of their hands, and they put the tefillin shel rosh on together with the bracha. We'll talk about that in Mitzvah Hashem in a minute. But why is that? Because the wearing of the tefillin is more important than the straps themselves. So we get the tefillin on as, we get the tefillin on in a way that they're not going to disappear, they're not going to go anywhere, they're not going to start slipping away. And then immediately we put on the tefillin shel rosh, and then we go back and we finish up, putting on the straps and putting them in the way, in the pattern that they're supposed to be on. Which arm does your tefillin shel yad go on to? It goes onto your weaker hand. So for most of us, that's the left hand. For some people, of course, if you're left-handed, then you put it on your right hand. And we spoke yesterday about the idea of you're ambidextrous. You really need to speak to your a COR.
I think the rule is
competent Orthodox rabbi.
Yeah. I think the ruling for ambidextrous is that you still put it on your weaker arm, like the arm that you don't favor as much.
Yeah. So I mean, again, normally, like I mentioned yesterday, the normal way of measuring whether you're right-handed or left-handed according to halakha is which hand you write with.
Yeah.
So even people who are ambidextrous, as a rule, they favor one hand over the other. It's just that they're able to write with the other hand as well, if needs be. Again, it's interesting. I don't know any statistics over here about whether ambidextrous people have a more of a leaning to their right side or to the left side. I don't know. But whatever it is, so if they use their right hand to write with normally, then they should put their tefillin on their left hand. I think you're right. I mean, I think if it's completely equal, and there is no difference between the two, the person regards his right hand and his left hand equally, then I would imagine that the halacha should be that you should just do what most people do, which is to put it onto your left hand, because the right hand is considered to be the more predominant side.
Yeah.
That's what I imagine, yeah. So what do we do with the tefillin shel rosh? We put it on. What is the correct place for the tefillin shel rosh? So it's got to sit on the front of the head. We spoke about this in the introduction. The idea of this part of the head over here, where when a baby is born, the skull hasn't yet come together, and that's the place that the tefillin is supposed to sit upon. It's important. It's really very important to note that if the tefillin's not sitting in the right place, then a person hasn't fulfilled the obligation for wearing his tefillin shel rosh. Which means it's not that if you put them on and they're not sitting in the right place, that you b'di eved, you fulfilled your obligation, but the obligation hasn't been fulfilled if they're not where they're supposed to be. Yeah.
It's funny. Wherever there are tefillin sold, there always seems to be either placed as an impulse purchase near the cash register, or sometimes they're even included in the purchase, are these little mirrors. Yet I've never seen anyone at a show take out their mirror.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Oh, that's interesting.
I've seen them.
I've got one.
And you use it?
Yeah, for sure.
Regularly?
I mean, when I put my tefillin on,
Yeah.
I tell you, how do I know that I need a haircut? Because if my tefillin start moving around, then that's a sign that my hair's grown too long and they're not sitting properly. But under normal circumstances, I don't. I put the tefillin on. I take a look to make sure they're in the right place using the mirror, and then afterwards I don't need to do anything about it. If it's been a while since I've had my hair cut, then every now and then if I feel that something's not right, then I'll take a quick peek to make sure that it's if it needs to be moved, to move it back to where it needs to get to. I think it's
that you do use that. I'm going to have to start looking more closely. Maybe they are being used.
It could be at the beginning it could be when people are putting them on at the beginning that's the moment that they're going to use them. But I think it's a very basic piece of equipment. It really is. It's true that the Shulchan Aruch says that you shouldn't have mirrors and you shouldn't be looking into mirrors. But this is looking into a mirror to make sure that you're fulfilling the mitzvah in the correct way.
I had a mirror, but I accidentally left it in London.
In London?
Yeah.
What is anyone going to do with a mirror in London?
I don't know. But on my way here, I had a 12-hour layover in London Heathrow.
Maybe it's still there.
Yeah.
When you go back, you can
Yeah,
pick it
maybe.
up on the way back.
Uh,
Yeah, so when I was growing up, they're all very fancy now. They come in little leather pouches, and they're stamped with a picture of tefillin, so you know that this has been made for. When I was a kid, you just had a mirror. That's all. It was like a little piece of mirror. My mother finished up some makeup or something, and there was a mirror inside of the inside of the case that she used, so you could break that apart and use that. It wasn't anything more exotic than that.
Advertising. A lot of times, there's advertising on the other side of the mirror.
yeah.
Yeah, buy Shloimi's tefillin. Yeah, good. So you got to be careful over here. Normally, and again, the tefillin should not come below your hairline. The hairline is where your hair used to be. Of course, for some people, their hairline keeps moving backwards. And at some point, like we mentioned the other day, a person may have to start putting his tefillin on backwards in order to make sure that they're not sitting behind the hairline. No, you always wear the tefillin pointing frontwards. But they should sit above where the hairline used to be. So here, my hairline's over here. The tefillin have to sit on top of that over there. Again, for people whose hairlines are moving backwards, where the hairline used to be, that's where they're supposed to be.
That's where the front of the butt team.
Yeah.
That's where the embarkation. That's the hairline.
It should be beyond that, which means it should be behind that. Everything should be behind that, which means the whole thing should be sitting no lower than the hairline, preferably a little bit above it.
Got it.
And it should be in the center of your head. Now, the center of your head normally is measured according to your nose, right? Your nose is in the middle of your face, unless you've been boxing, and then it might be on the left or on the right.
It might just be like broken where it's like
Well, if you've been boxing and if it's still in the middle of your face, it will be in the middle and on the right and on the left, and it will be sort of like spread out all over the place. But if you just sort of take a line straight up from your nose up. So that's going to hit the middle of where the tefillin are supposed to be. You'll see a lot of people do that instead of looking into their mirrors, right? Once they're up and going, if they want to make sure that tefillin's in the right place, you'll see them going like that, right? What is that? Just to make sure that the tefillin's sitting in the middle. And what do we do with the straps at the back are very fascinating, actually, because the way that they're tied is, actually, it's like this. Can you see that? Yeah, good. Okay. What have we got? We've got two different kinds of tefillin knots. They're both dullets. This one is a more obvious looking dullet. This is what's called a double dullet. And the strap goes down here, and the strap goes down here, or the strap goes like this or like that. Whichever one you've got is fine. You should do not deviate from whatever custom you've got. For example, when I was growing up, this is what we had. There were some people, I think, that came from Hasidic, from Hasidic backgrounds, that they had double dullets like that. You'll see both wherever you go daven. Normally, you'll see both. Don't worry about it. Each one is perfectly acceptable. What have you got on the back of yours? Do you know? Have you ever looked at the back of your tefillin?
I've definitely felt it. I mean, but
Aha!
I can't remember right now which one I've got. I can bring them in tomorrow or like later.
Well, just have a look tomorrow morning when you put them on. Just have a look and see at the back whether it's a square.
Yeah.
The knot, whether it's a square at the back or whether it looks like a
dollar.
Like a dullet.
Oh yeah.
And it'd just be interesting to know. Different customs from different places. That's all. Where is this knot supposed to sit? Well, you've got a nape at the back of your neck. You've got like an indentation, and it's supposed to sit at the top. Have you got one? I don't. Maybe in the Netherlands they don't have these things. I don't know.
Well, I will have to make an investigation and with X-rays.
If you don't have one, it's fine. We can arrange it.
By boxing, I guess.
There's a little, we've got a little machine at the back. You just put your head in for a moment, and you come out. You'll come out with a beautifully positioned. I don't know what this thing is called. What's it called? It's
nape.
Is that the nape? Is that what it's? Yeah. Okay.
It's
It's supposed the knot is supposed to sit on right at the top of the nape. Now, you should know that the most comfortable way of wearing tefillin is to have the strap sort of the knot much further down and the strap coming around like this, because then it sits on your head and it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere, but that's not going to be sitting in the right place. In order to have it sitting in the right place, it's actually reasonably uncomfortable, certainly at the beginning, because it feels like it's going to pop off. It feels like it's not really pushed down far enough, and it's just something that needs to be got used to. When you wear new tefillin, so it's a little bit more uncomfortable because, it takes a while to settle into place, and it takes a while to, take on the contours of your head. What's at the back over here? So we've spoken about the back over here in a different context. We spoke about the back over here with regards to the Malava Malka. But according to the sages, what's called the luz, that bone where the resurrection is going to take place from, Tchias HaMesim is going to happen, is up at the top of the brainstem, right from the spine going up into the brain, and that's the place where the knot of the tefillin is supposed to sit, over there. So again, we've spoken in the introduction, we spoke about this incredible symbolism of the idea of the tefillin shalosh opening up communication with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a way that can't be done under normal circumstances. And we see how this incredible system is working from the back, which is the place where the luz bone is found, which is where the resurrection is going to take place from, up to the front, where the opening is take place and the ability to be able to connect together with God. There are two different brachot which are recited over wearing tefillin, but only according to the Ashkenazi custom. The Sephardi custom, they only make one bracha, which is laniach tefillin, and then that counts for both of them. For the Ashkenazim, we have laniach tefillin, and then we have al mitzvat tefillin, which we recite over putting on the tefillin shel rosh. Now, there's a problem over here in general. First of all, you should know that if a person, a Sephardi, who is putting on tefillin and talks by mistake between tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh, now has to make a new bracha over the tefillin shel rosh, right? Because he's made what's called a hefsek, and they're considered to be one unit. And if you made a break, then you need to make a bracha over putting on the tefillin shel rosh. For the
you don't start over.
You don't take it off. You don't because you've already made the bracha over the tefillin shel yad,
right.
So you can't make it again because you've already fulfilled that obligation, right? So what do? You have to make a bracha now over the tefillin shel rosh because it's now considered to be separate. Yeah.
You know when you go to the toilet during davening and then you
Yes.
take off your tefillin?
Yes.
Do you have to re-say? Do you have to put? Do you have to say a bracha again when you put them back on?
No. Once you take off your tefillin, if you have to go to the bathroom, you want to come back again and put them back on again. So you're taking them off with the knowledge that you're going to put them back on.
And how do you do it? Can you do the whole thing like? You know what I mean? Yeah. The whole wrap of the arm.
When you put it back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you put it back on, you should put them back on exactly the same way you put them on when you were making the blessing.
Oh really? So you've got to do the whole weight here and then put the head on, then finish the hand.
Yeah.
You learn something new every day here.
You certainly do. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so what's pshat, right? I got confused yesterday. You mentioned that if you talk in between the two, that you still make for the Ashkenazi custom is that you make al mitzvah tefillin on the tefillin shel rosh. For the Sephardi custom is that you just say laniach tefillin on both of them, and then if you talk in between, you have to say al mitzvah tefillin on the tefillin shel rosh. Yesterday we spoke about this idea that the bracha of al mitzvah tefillin is a less defined bracha, which means the bracha of laniach tefillin is defining exactly what the mitzvah is. You have to put these things on, right? You can't say the same bracha over the tefillin shel rosh that you make over the tefillin shel yad, because you've already said that bracha and you've fulfilled that obligation, right? So in the same way, for example, I don't know if this is a great example, but if you're going to eat an apple and an orange, you don't make a boi priya 8 over the apple and then make a boi priya 8 over the orange, because you've covered yourself by making the bracha the first time around.
That would never happen to me though, because I don't like fruit.
Okay, there you go. I told you it may not be a great example. I did say that.
I think the idea is that it's one's intent on saying the bracha to begin with, that both the apple and the orange in that example are included. right? I mean, you have to know. You when you say the bracha, the single bracha, you're saying it with the intention of consuming both. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You threw me there for a minute. Yes.
All right.
What's the Indian over here though with the tefillin is that because there's a rather interesting machlokes, a rather interesting disagreement amongst the early authorities about whether tefillin is one mitzvah or two. Right? If it's one mitzvah, then you need one bracha. If it's two mitzvahs, then you need two brachas. But again, we're running into a technical issue because if it's two mitzvahs, if it's two mitzvot, you can't recite the same bracha over both of them because they're so similar with each other. That would be akin to making Borei Priya Eitz over an apple and Borei Priya Eitz over an orange if one were to eat fruit. Right?
Malcolm X kind of spirit.
And maybe the difference between, I don't know, chips and mashed potatoes or something. Will that do it? Yeah.
I got it on mine.
Good.
Like chips.
The only exception to the rule over here about talking in between putting on your tefillin and having to make a second bracha is if your talking is regarding the tefillin. Right, so let's say, for example, the person puts on his tefillin shel yad, makes his bracha, takes out the tefillin shel rosh, and realizes that the knot's been undone. Right, it's a rather unlikely scenario, but just for argument's sake, right? Or he realizes that there's marks, that the black of the tefillin has started rubbing away, and now there's a little bit of discoloration, and he needs to color it up with one of those little felt tips that are sold at some enormous markup because it's got a piece of paper around it saying it's for tefillin. If that's the case, then it would be permissible to say that it would be permissible to speak because obviously your speaking is helping you get the mitzvah done. Let's say, for example, I don't know, you've got somebody who puts on his tefillin shel yad and he doesn't know how to put on tefillin shel rosh, right? So he then turns to the person next to him and says, how do I do this? That would be okay to do. If he turns around to the person next to him in between tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh and says, I don't know what happened to the Red Sox yesterday. Does that make sense? The Red Sox, I don't know, is that
Boston?
Boston
Okay.
Red Sox.
Boston.
yeah,
Boston.
okay. I don't know where the Red Sox came from. It's
You're
just
from
like
Europe, right? So
for sure. It just like I don't know. It just slipped out.
I thought we were talking about the socks you were wearing today.
All my socks are red. They just happen to be black. That's all. But
Oh, okay.
but if you're gonna turn around to somebody, I don't know, say like, what did you have for dinner yesterday? In between your tefillin shel rosh and tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh, that's a problem. That's considered to be a hefsek. That's considered, even if it's just hi, how you doing? Good morning, right? You're not supposed to do that in between the two. If it's excuse me, could you help me? I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to be doing over here. That for sure is okay.
Even if it precedes the initial most bracha when donning the shel yad, like if somebody's walking to shul and you are too, and you're struggling with, say, an adjustment of some kind, and clearly this person has prepared himself for davening, can you still say, excuse me, am I doing this right, or can you help me with this, or does this?
Where is he? What's he doing at this moment?
He's wearing tefillin and talis on his way to the shul.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Then you're saying for sure that you.
It's
can?
okay. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Pat, just one other question I had. Let's do the topic. Don't worry.
Oh, okay.
And then Sheikh Yanu. What's the whole deal with putting your tefillin on before you get to shul?
It's an interesting thing. There is an opinion that a person should come into shul already wearing their tefillin. Right? They should come into shul ready to daven. That's why you'll see many people get themselves ready. They put on their tefillin before they go into shul. Some people, when you live in a frum neighborhood, some people even come to shul. They walk to shul wearing their tefillin.
Yeah.
It's just the shul's just up the road, so they come out of their homes wearing their tefillin and they go straight to shul like that. other opinions are that you can put your tefillin on when you get into shul. Whatever you're going to do over it's going to be okay, right? But that's why you'll see many shuls. You'll see lots of people getting themselves ready before they actually walk into wherever the tefillah is going to take place, wherever the davening is going to take place. But what do? You're halfway through putting on your tefillin, and you see somebody else doing something wrong with their tefillin.
And you stop doing
Right?
order and help
Right.
them.
So even though you would, you could say there's a pretty good argument to say, well, let me finish up what I'm doing, right? Like it says on the airplanes when it says that you should put your oxygen mask on first and then worry about the people next to you, right? Nevertheless, over here, if you see somebody putting on the tefillin wrong, then for sure stop what you're doing and go over and explain to him how to put his tefillin on properly before you go back and you finish up putting your own on. Yeah.
You're saying that it's a mitzvah to rebuke.
Well, that's very biblical of you. I would say it's a mitzvah to help other people to do their mitzvahs properly.
Okay.
No,
But it
how-
is the same thing, right?
One second. How would you say it?
I think so.
Because you don't want to put somebody off. So many times.
No, you come and say, can I help you? You know,
Like,
looks
see,
like
that's-
it
oh,
looks
you're
like
doing
a
it wrong.
no. I mean, if you want, you could say that, but I think it would probably be nicer to say something like, "It looks like you're having a bit of trouble over here. Can I help you out?" I do it all the time when I see people taking out their wallets. I say, like, having a bit of trouble. Can I help you out over here? Yes, no, that red note is really not worth anything at all. Give it to me. I'll take care of it. When you're in the middle of putting on your tefillin, this is something which occurs all the time, right? When you go to shul and you're in the middle of putting on your tefillin and people are already davening, or the last minute, let's judge people favorably. You, of course, have come a little bit early in order to be able to get yourself ready to begin davening with the minyan. The minyan that is just finishing up, the one before it is just finishing up. You're putting on your tefillin as they're going through the process of saying, Aleinu, Shir Shel Yom, En Kelokenu, and there's lots of kaddishes going on over there, one after the other, right? When you are in the middle of putting on your tefillin, you should not respond to anything, right? Don't respond to kaddish and don't respond to anything else, but you should wait until it's all over and then you should carry on putting on your tefillin, right? If by mistake you answered, for a lot of people it's like an automatic thing, right? You hear Kaddish and you say Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah, and you suddenly realize that you're in the middle of your putting on your tefillin. You've got your tefillin shel yad on and you haven't put your tefillin shel rosh on yet. Then you have to go back and you have to repeat the bracha of laniach tefillin again.
What happens if you put them on without the bracha and you forget to?
Oh, interesting question. What happens if you forget to put the tefillin? If you forget to put your tefillin on with a bracha? I mean, lechora, if you forget and you haven't done it, you've still fulfilled the mitzvah, even though you haven't made the bracha, right? Because you put them on.
But
The question over here is whether you should
Yeah.
take them off and put them back on again
That's
with a
what I'm
bracha. I think the answer. I think
Oh,
the answer is probably yes.
Will
Actually,
you sitter? He's got his will you sitter at.
He's
I'm
got
just
his
looking.
volume.
I'm just-
no. He's not checking everything up. He's just overwhelmed with a desire to look inside of his well-used siddur. That's all. And he just happens to be looking at the part that's talking about tefillin. It's not, no. But he's not preparing a critique of any kind. No, really not.
Don't worry, I'll protect you if you start.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anytime.
My sitter that I have, I think it's like an appendix in the back that it goes over all the laws.
All the halachas.
regarding
Yeah.
tefillin
Good.
and stuff.
Very good.
So,
I had a question. I don't know. Well, I'll do this as quickly as I can. Yes,
That was pretty quick.
I'll try to do that. I'll try to repeat that. It's a long bracha. And my question is, how many people have set to memory all that is necessary?
What the Very few, I would imagine. I think you'll also find that even though that declaration of intent, which you're supposed to say when you come to put your tefillin on, it's a very beautiful thing. We went through it a little bit. It's very beautiful, and the ideas are very beautiful. I think you'll find that most people, when they come into shul, may prefer to just put their tefillin on and get going before they recite that. I shouldn't be telling you this because, obviously it's better that you actually say it than not say it. But given the choice between spending minutes reciting that and then perhaps not being together with everybody else whilst they're davening, it would make much more sense to just put your tefillin on and to daven together with the community rather than fall behind because you were reciting that. Of course, the most obvious answer, of course, is to come a little bit early to prayers and to get yourself ready.
You have your
and
thoughts. Gather your thoughts.
Here, for example, to gather your thoughts.
I think when people
Or
do
thought.
come prepared with tefillin and talis and arrive at the shul, they've done that.
Presumably they've done it at home and they've given themselves, enough time to be able to get themselves there.
Oh, also, all the morning blessings and everything. Are you supposed to say that when you get up and before you go to shul?
Well, there's two lots of brachas. There's Birkat Torah
No,
and
then there's
Birkat Shachar.
Torah and all of that.
Right. So those. Let me say like this. Where should you say them? It makes more sense if you ask me to say them in shul. If you want to say them, before you get to shul, that's okay.
Because let's say that they're going to say Kaddish, and we'll go straight into PJ.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, again, what really, I don't think it makes an awful lot of difference, although you will find in some shuls in England, for example, the accepted norm is that they recite the brachas in shul, and everybody answers amen to them. Over here in Israel, many communities, they just start, davening really starts with the Shlosha Seimidish Tonish Nidreshes Ben, Rabbi Yishmael Omer, and then they say Kaddish to Rabbanon, and then they start with Mizmor Shir, Chanukah Sabayis to David. So, whatever you want to do, whatever is good for you, it's going to be okay if you do that. The straps of the Tefillin Shorosh should be hanging down with the black facing outwards. And we spoke about that the other day, that today you've got on the market straps that are black on both sides. So that way you have to be less concerned about what position they're in. But if you've got good old-fashioned straps, like most people seem to have, then you've got the you've got the leather look on the inside, you've got the black look on the outside, and the black needs to be facing forwards the whole time. You should be careful with that. Now, there's an interesting thing over here. Once you've recited the bracha over the Tefillin Shorosh, you say the bracha al mitzvat Tefillin, for those of us that say it. You then say, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Ve'ed. Right, where is that coming from?
Shema.
It's pretty famous because we say it after the first line of the Shema. We then say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Ve'ed. But the verse itself is something which is used in a rather interesting scenario. If a person makes a bracha that they shouldn't have made, right? So then you say by mistake. You thought that you were going to, you make a bracha over your drink, and then you realize there's nothing in there. There is a machloikis, right? We've got a disagreement amongst the authorities about whether you should be making a second bracha over the tefillin, or you shouldn't be making a second bracha over the tefillin. Even for those who say that you should, because of the machloikis, because of the disagreement within the halacha, within Jewish law, as to whether you should or whether you shouldn't, we add the words Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusay Le'olam Va'ed after we've made the bracha, just to cover our bases, right? Just in case we were not supposed to make that bracha. So it's a form of, it's like asking forgiveness from God, right? So here you take your cup and you make a shahakol, and then you realize that it's empty. So you've now made a blessing in vain.
No,
you didn't mean to.
Then fill your cup up and then drink after.
Pardon?
You not then go and fill your cup up.
I think the moral of the story is that you should always fill your cup up before you make the blessing. I think so. Yeah, that's.
That might be a good shout.
No, for example, here you're sitting over here, right, and you make a bracha shakol, and until you go to where you're going to, that the gap is going to be too great between making the bracha and filling up the cup. and you thought it was and there wasn't, right?
Unless
So,
you run.
pardon?
Unless you run.
Well, can we just stick with my scenario over here? Really, this is,
Sorry.
What happens if you?
no, this is ridiculous.
No. Wait.
What happens if there's a hole in the bottom of your cup, and when you pick it up, by the time you said the bracha, it's all dripped out?
No,
you have to go and get a towel.
It's not eating a bag of crisps in this room. You don't walk around with a bag of crisps. You have to say another bracha over the
This building is considered to be one unit, which means that even if you're walking around over here and you go from one room to another, there's no problem. However, huh?
Even downstairs.
Even downstairs, upstairs. I mean, there is.
Yeah.
Upstairs. If you're downstairs, there's an
Alex
upstairs. here.
will find any difference between them.
Right, so we're on the idea.
Yes, hold on, stop it. Right, right.
Any example.
So here we've got it because there's a concern that maybe I shouldn't have made that bracha over the tefillin, because maybe it really is only one bracha for the two of them. So we say which is a method of asking forgiveness for God if I made what's called a bracha levatala, a blessing in vain, right? And that's where the custom comes from, to say Baruch Shem. Again, for the Sfadim, it's not a problem, because they're only making one bracha anyway, so there's nothing to be concerned about. For the Ashkenazim, that's our problem. When should you take your tefillin off? You should really wear your tefillin until the end of davening, until the end of the prayers, right? But sometimes that's not always doable. Somebody has to leave early. They've got whatever it is. So you should at least try to wait until after what's called uvalatzion. Uvalatzion, it comes after the repetition of the Amida. It comes after Tachnun, on days that Tachnun is recited. Uvalatzion has a little kedusha inside of it, where we say the verses Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh together, and Baruch Shem together as well. And a person should really endeavor to leave his tefillin on till at least after uvalatzion. If that's not possible, then, whatever, you have to do whatever you need to do.
Why is it not possible?
I don't know, maybe you've got to go somewhere. Sometimes prayers take longer than you thought they were going to.
But if you go somewhere, you have to take it off then, or
Yeah.
you have
I'm
to.
saying, I don't know, you don't have to, but if you've got a business meeting
Today,
lined up at...
this morning, somebody pointed a direction with me, but yeah, this is filling on. So.
Oh, that's all. Yeah, again,
Yeah.
it really depends what you're doing. I
Uh,
think if you're going to go off to a business meeting, you're probably going to take your tefillin off before you go, right? If you're going off to learn in the Bet Midrash, right, and you just want to go and learn some Torah, so you can leave them on, right? It's very much up to you. Again, we spoke about the idea. You've got to be aware of the fact that you're wearing tefillin, which means that your kavanot, your intentions, need to be, directed in the right way. It's very difficult once you've left the synagogue. It's very difficult to keep that sense of kavanah, of intent.
Yeah.
There are people that can do it, right? There are people that sit with their tefillin on all day long. I don't think, the truth is that nowadays, I don't think any of them are involved in business endeavors. I don't think they do their business wearing tefillin. Although it is conceivable, in the olden days, that you might have had somebody who would have worn his tefillin when he was busy, making shoes or something. I don't know.
You do not recommend it for negotiation.
Oh, maybe it's a good idea. I don't know.
Leverage.
Yeah.
You know what the problem is. You'll turn up one day with your tefillin on, and he'll come when next time you meet, he'll be wearing two lots of tefillin. Right? Anything
like
you can do, I can do better, right?
Yesterday I was in Zilberman.
Oh, Zilberman, they wear that tefillin all day long. Right? That's yeah. Where were you? In the Chova? Where were you?
No.
In the Beis Medrash?
In the roofs.
Ah, yeah?
I was in the Rova.
The Rova Muslim.
Yeah. Huh?
I was in a Rova Yehudim when the person gave me directions with his tefillin.
Ah, yeah?
They're working for the-
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a group of people over there. They're called Zilberman. They followed somebody called Rav Zilberman, where they've got a whole system. They've got schooling all the way from the beginning until the end, and over there the custom is that they wear their tefillin all day long.
Oh.
whilst they're learning Torah. So it could be you bumped into somebody like that who was, on his way from one place to another place. Again, it's a hard thing to do. It really is. Don't imagine that it's no big deal. Yeah. I think it's hard. Why do we wear our tefillin at Shacharit, right? Because Shacharit is the longest prayer that we've got, and maybe with a little bit of luck, maybe we'll be able to stay, focused on our prayers and when wearing tefillin during Shacharit. It's difficult enough as it is, right? Imagine if you've got to do that throughout the entire day. That's a lot harder, a lot more complicated. On Rosh Chodesh, when we have the new moon, so the tefillin are taken off after Hallel, actually after Kriyat Torah, and before we daven Musaf.
So right up before Ashrei.
Even no, afterwards. In between, after you finish Ashrei and Uva Letzion, and before Musaf begins, then you take off your tefillin. Again, in some communities, you got to get them off, and you won't have time to wrap them up, and you just start to pray the Musaf Amida. In some communities, they wait a little bit in order to allow people to wrap things up, and then they start the Musaf Amida. Whatever you do, again, just follow what everyone else is doing. Of course, they might be watching to see what you're doing, which means that you'll have this moment of complete and absolute panic when nobody knows what they're supposed to be doing. But that's
they just start saying something. Everyone else follows.
that's right. That's the sort of like you have somebody who blows their nose 3 times, and everyone, all of a sudden that's what everyone now does. Got to blow your nose 3 times beforehand. What's the on Chol Hamoed? So there's a big disagreement amongst the various authorities about whether you should wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed or whether you shouldn't. Chol Hamoed in the intermediate days between Pesach and Sukkot. So again, most communities over here, all communities that I've ever davened in over here, nobody wears tefillin for Chol Hamoed at all. Some communities do. I think they're mostly communities coming from the German background, so Yekiz over there, they do wear the tefillin. If you're davening in a community that does not, then you should not put your tefillin on in shul. Go home and put them on at home instead. When it comes to Chol Hamoed, on Chol Hamoed you take your tefillin off before Hallel. This is just to confuse everybody, right? Which means that on Rosh Chodesh you take your tefillin off before you begin the Musaf Amida. On Chol Hamoed you take off your tefillin before you begin Hallel, which is after the recitation of Shacharit. Again, I would imagine that most places that you pray in, you're not going to have the problem at all, because most places probably they don't wear tefillin at all. You will find in the community that I grew up in, the community was split pretty much down the middle. So half the people did wear their tefillin, half the people didn't wear their tefillin. And again, that's fine. When you've got a community like that, that's fine. You can do whatever your family minhag is. That's the right thing to do, yeah.
I'm just curious, in those communities that choose not to wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed, do they still wear a talis?
Yes. You wear a talis every day,
Right.
Even on Shabbos and Yom Tov, on days when for sure you're not wearing tefillin anyway. And on Chol Hamoed, even if you're not going to wear tefillin, you should be wearing a talis as well. Yeah. Okay, you know what? I think we're going to stop over here, Mitzvah Hashem. Tomorrow we'll talk about taking off the tefillin, how exactly the procedure for taking them off. Right?
Thank you, Rabbi Lauffer.